Welcome to One Chapter, One Thought. I'm Pastor Chris from Lincroft Bible Church in New Jersey, and every weekday I read one chapter of the Bible and offer one brief devotional thought. Today's reading is from the book of Proverbs, chapter 1. These are the Proverbs of Solomon, David's son, king of Israel. Their purpose is to teach people wisdom and discipline, to help them understand the insights of the wise. Their purpose is to teach people to live disciplined and successful lives, to help them do what is just, right, and fair. These proverbs will give insight to the simple, knowledge and discernment to the young. Let the wise listen to these proverbs and become even wiser. Let those with understanding receive guidance by exploring the meaning in these proverbs and parables, the words of the wise and their riddles. Fear of the Lord is the fountain of true knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and discipline. My child, listen when your father corrects you. Don't neglect your mother's instruction. What you learn from them will crown you with grace and be a chain of honor around your neck. My child, if sinners entice you, turn your back on them. They may say, "Come and join us. Let's hide and kill someone. Just for fun, let's ambush the innocent. Let's swallow them alive like the grave. Let's swallow them whole like those who go down to the pit of death. Think of the great things we'll get. We'll fill our houses with all the stuff we take. Come, throw in your lot with us. We'll share the loot." My child, don't go along with them. Stay far from their paths. They rush to commit evil deeds. They hurry to commit murder. If a bird sees a trap being set, it knows to stay away. But these people set an ambush for themselves. They are trying to get themselves killed. Such is the fate of all who are greedy for money. It robs them of life. Wisdom shouts in the streets. She cries out in the public square. She calls to the crowds along the main street, to those gathered in front of the city gate. How long, you simpletons, will you insist on being simple-minded? How long, you mockers, will you relish your mocking? How long will you fools hate knowledge? Come and listen to my counsel. I'll share my heart with you and make you wise. I called you so often, but you wouldn't come. I reached out to you, but you paid no attention. You ignored my advice and rejected the correction I offered. So I will laugh when you are in trouble. I will mock when you are in disaster, when calamity overtakes you like a storm, when disaster engulfs you like a cyclone, and anguish and distress overwhelm you. When they cry for help, I will not answer. Though they anxiously search for me, they will not find me. For they hated knowledge and chose not to fear the Lord. They rejected my advice and paid no attention when I corrected them. Therefore, they must eat the bitter fruit of living their own way, choking on their own schemes. For simpletons turn away from me to death. Fools are destroyed by their own complacency. But all who listen to me will live in peace, untroubled by fear of harm. One thought. Today, we begin a new genre of literature, the wisdom literature, exemplified so well in the book of Proverbs. If you want to go deeper in how to read Proverbs well, there is a bonus episode that aired right before this one, so you can find that in the feed of episodes, and it will walk you through some tips and some just ideas about how to read Proverbs well. But as we come to Proverbs chapter 1, what you'll find is that most of the Proverbs were written by King Solomon of Israel. And what King Solomon is doing in Proverbs is he is applying the Torah, that is the law, or typically what we think of as the Ten Commandments. He is taking these 10 commandments, these principles that God had given his people in this covenant with Israel, and he's trying to apply them to everyday life. And specifically, though, he's trying to pass on and apply this wisdom to his son. Now, in the NLT version that we're reading, it says "my child," but in the Hebrew text, it's actually Solomon talking to his son, maybe an heir to the throne, to help prepare him for life and leadership. And Solomon begins the book by explaining the purpose. Why is he writing these proverbs? What do they do for people? And he says, first of all, Proverbs give wisdom. in verse 2. Their purpose is to teach people wisdom and discipline. And so wisdom is really about navigating the complexities of life. See, there's limits to rules. There's limits to the law in that life is complex, man. Life has a lot going on with it. And sometimes, a black and white rule doesn't always speak into all of the gray areas of life. And so you need wisdom. You need to be able to see the rules, see the principles that are going on, and then use them wisely to navigate through complex situations. Growing wise is also about growing in discernment. It's about knowing the difference between what is good and what's bad, right and wrong. That's kind of the first blanket, step of being wise, is just knowing what is right and what is wrong. But discernment kind of digs a level deeper. And then as we're making decisions, as we're going through life, it discerns between what is better and best. And so we grow wise when we're able to see the differences, not just between right and wrong, but between what's better and what's best. So he writes to give wisdom. These proverbs are for success as well. He says in verse 3, their purpose is to teach people to live disciplined and successful lives. Now, when we hear that, and typically we might have our minds turn to worldly measures of success, money, power, fame, influence, popularity. But that's not what success is according to the Bible, and that's not even what success is according to Solomon in the text itself. What he points out is that successful living is godly living and avoiding things that will ruin your life. We see this long extended warning beginning in verse 10 where he says, my child, if sinners entice you, turn your back on them. And he wraps it up by saying that, these people set an ambush for themselves. They're trying to get themselves killed. And so for Solomon, successful living is shunning the things that will destroy our life, avoiding those things. And if you just avoid that, you're going to be on a pretty good path. We also see that these proverbs are written to help us develop into just human beings. He says in verse 3, their purpose is to teach them and to help them do what is right, just, and fair. So the wise person is also a just and righteous person. And being a just and righteous person has social implications. Old Testament scholar Bruce Waltke writes about the wise versus the wicked in Proverbs, and he writes this. He says, the wicked advantage themselves by disadvantaging others, but the righteous disadvantage themselves to advantage others. Let's hear that again. The wicked advantage themselves to disadvantage others, but the righteous disadvantage themselves to advantage others. That is what it means to live a just and righteous life, that we put others above ourselves, and we may actually make sacrifices that hurt us a little bit in order to do what is good and right and help other people. So Proverbs then is not just trying to make us smarter, but they're really for having us grow wise, to know God more and to know how to navigate life. And God gives us his wisdom so that we can know how to follow him in this complex world, how to avoid ruining our lives, and how to be a source of light and justice for our communities.